Hey everybody, in today's episode, it's myself, D-Dog, also known as Destiny, and Nicole. Nicole is one of our licensed clinicians here at Rock Recovery Center. Now, what are we talking about today? All things anxiety. Look, I know you struggle with it because we all do in some capacity. Is it situational? Is it generalized? Who knows? But you have anxiety. So in this episode, we're talking about coping skills for anxiety, ultimately figuring out what is causing the anxiety, what anxiety does to us on a physical level, on a mental level, on an emotional level, how it can ultimately cripple us, and why it's important to really focus on that when we're getting clean and sober. We've never met an addict or an alcoholic that is not dual diagnosed with anxiety in some capacity. I've been in this field well over 10 years, and I have yet to find an addict that says, I don't struggle with anxiety. But before we get into the episode, I do want to talk about today's sponsor, which is SoberLink. SoberLink, we partnered with them, and they are a breathalyzer, but it's completely portable. It's awesome. We oftentimes talk about having tools in our toolbox when it comes to staying sober, and SoberLink would be a good addition too. Now, a few things I want to mention about SoberLink. Number one, it's tamper-proof. It's really hard to break this thing. Could you break it? Probably, but it's tamper-proof. Facial recognition. I couldn't just pass this breathalyzer off to Destiny and say, hey, will you blow in this thing for me? It doesn't work that way. Also, you could schedule it. You could schedule it to where you do it in the morning, lunchtime, in the evening, around dinner time, whatever you choose. Now, SoberLink does not take the place of Alcoholics Anonymous. It does not take the place of addiction treatment. It is a tool. So where we see most people utilize this is whenever they're completing treatment. Maybe they're going back home and they want the extra accountability. You do the breathalyzer and you can set it up to get sent to an accountability partner, maybe a trusted therapist, maybe a trusted family member. It is completely up to you. It's not designed to catch you in a relapse. It is designed to give you accountability. Now, SoberLink was kind enough to give us a coupon code. So if you go to soberlink.com/RRT, you'll get 50% off your first device. Who doesn't love saving money? Soberlink.com/RRT, 50% off of your first device. Enjoy the show.
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I'm your host, Tom Conrad. Thank you for tuning in.
No, wrong.
Shit.
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I'm your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got D-Dog.
What's up, guys?
And we have Nicole. Nicole, hello.
Hello. Smoosh.
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use, and thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, ladies?
Yeah.
That's right.
Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hi, Thomas. Hi, Smoosh.
Hi, Smoosh.
Hi.
You guys done?
We're just getting started.
Smoosh. Oh, yeah.
So, in today's episode, it's all things anxiety. Because the one to my right, possibly your left, if you're watching on YouTube, the one to my right suffers from anxiety pretty debilitatingly, if that's a word. And the one to my left treats it. So I thought, well, this would be a great episode to do.
You know I have anxiety too, Tom, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you're a therapist, so like, you just have to deal with it.
Oh, okay.
But no, and past episodes that we've done that has been anxiety focused, they always do very well. And that is, we haven't done one on strictly anxiety in quite some time. And the reality of it is everybody suffers from it to some capacity, myself included. And it is one of the main drivers of addiction. I can comfortably say I have never, ever once, not one time, come across an addict or an alcoholic that is not dual diagnosed with anxiety in some capacity. And Destiny and I, how many pre-admissions have we done over the years?
Oh, gosh.
Hundreds and hundreds of them. And one of the questions is, do you suffer from anxiety? If so, on a scale of 1 to 10. Very rarely are we going to get somebody that says 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Never have I ever gotten anybody that said, oh, I don't have anxiety.
Mhm.
It's always in that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 range. And then I always dig in a little bit deeper in the sense of like, what was your level of anxiety like prior going into treatment? And still, same thing, always high, always elevated. And what we have found over the years is that is why a lot of people turn to drugs and alcohol, is to kind of tamper that down. And some of our most commonly prescribed medications are marketed as anti-anxiety medications. Your Valiums, your Xanaxes, your Ativans, your Klonopins. They're anti-anxiety medications. The word is literally in there. And they're given out rather freely. And I was prescribed Ativan at the young age of probably 22, I would say. And I had never been to this primary care physician ever. It was literally my first time. And I went there because I felt completely off. Like I just felt not myself.
Like you
know?
really did. You weren't like doctor shopping.
No.
Yeah.
I really felt like knowing now it was anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. But I didn't know what was going on with me in the moment. Well, let me rephrase that. Knowing what I know now, it was alcohol withdrawal.
Oh, right.
Coupled with anxiety, right? And I wasn't in that doctor's office 10 minutes and I had a script for Ativan. And that was my first experience to anti-anxiety medications. And so what did I do? Nothing. I took them and I continued to drink. And fast forward a year or two later, I'm now doing both of them simultaneously and completely blacked out every day.
Not as prescribed. Let me just put that.
No, not as prescribed. And I'll end with this and then we'll open it up. The issue I have with anxiety and anti-anxiety medications, I think they could be a useful tool for a lot of people. My issue is that when doctors hand out these anti-anxiety medications, there's never any education around it. It's not, hey, Destiny, I'm going to give you a script for Ativan, Xanax, whatever. 30 days. That's it. In this 30 days, I need you to seek out a therapist. I need you to research coping skills on how to manage your anxiety. I really need you to hone in on where this anxiety is coming from, because it's not, all anxiety stems in the mind. And so if we could figure out where this is established from, where at its core is this anxiety coming from? Because me, as your doctor, which I'm not a doctor, by the way, this is an example. As your doctor, these are severely addictive. So I'll give you the script, but I need you to do this. Can you do that? That is what I would love to see doctors do. And I'm sure some of them out there do, but the vast majority of them don't. And you find people addicted to them. So.
Yeah, and that's not to say all doctors are bad, but I can tell you my personal experience is it wasn't educated around the anxiety. It was the idea that I got from it was take this pill and it's going to make you feel better. And this is your solution. Do you know what I mean? So as long as I have this pill, I'll be okay. And then as time gets on, obviously the addiction or whatever progresses. But that's the idea that the doctor, at least again, in my experience, laid out over the years was I have the pill. That's what's going to make me feel better. Not going deeper into the root cause. It's just a Band-Aid, you know?
And I think a lot of times, even not, and I'm not, again, not like blanket statement, not like all doctors, right? But like a lot of even physicians are not educated on the disease of addiction as well. And so, and you have somebody who is an addict and they go into a doctor's office and say, I have all these issues, and you give them a pill, they're going to be like, oh, great. Let me just do that. Doesn't require work in their mind in that moment. Right. And so I think it's important. I don't know. I think it's important that those, like what you suggested, there's some educational element to it, as far as like, okay, yes, you have this medication, but also these are also things you can do. And I'm more talking about SSRIs, not benzos.
Yeah.
Benzos are a whole other animal. That's what you're talking about. I'm not a fan. It's just like you said, it's very addicting. It makes people feel good. There's euphoria to it. And if they have a predisposition to this disease, that's very high risk. And sometimes they don't ask the proper questions about that with somebody. Like, well, how do you know they're not an addict? How do you know it's not in their family? Like, are you educating them on what this medication will do and has a potential of doing?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know we've talked to Tambini about this at length on the podcast before, but going off of what you said, Nicole, asking these open-ended questions, I think is key. Now, the unfortunate part is most doctors don't have the time to be able to do that.
That's fair.
Some doctors, though, that have, practices that maybe are strictly cash pay, and there's a lot of these popping up now. They don't even deal with insurance. It's strictly cash pay, and, it's more expensive, but it allows them to spend the time with you that they need to. In those situations, asking open-ended questions like what you said, do you have a history of addiction? Does any family history of addiction? In what situations do you find yourself most anxious? Those sorts of things. But then you're also relying, as a doctor, you're relying on that person sitting in front of you to be honest, but you don't have another option, right? It's like you as a therapist, when you're sitting in a session with somebody, a one-on-one session, in theory, we'd like to think that everybody's being upfront and honest.
Right.
Reality is that's not always the case. But you can't just make something up. Like, you have to treat them based off of what they're saying.
Right.
And a lot of times doctors don't have the ability to do that. And then you see people get in this perpetual cycle. And I do want to draw attention to the fact that I've had many conversations where people just completely shy over anti-anxiety medications. Like, oh, it's not even a thing. When it most definitely is a thing. There's two substances that you can die from withdrawals: alcohol and benzodiazepines. That is it, point blank, period. Why? Because in most cases, what ends up happening, if you're addicted to alcohol or benzodiazepines and you abruptly stop, you can have a seizure. Well, if nobody's around and you have a seizure and maybe you throw up, now you asphyxiate and you essentially drown yourself. Brain bleeds, strokes, all these things that can happen when you come off of these things. So we can't sit here and pretend that anti-anxiety medications, just because they're prescribed from a doctor, makes it okay. I mean, so were Oxycontins and Percocets and Vicodin and all that stuff.
Destiny's face.
Yeah.
True.
Good old pill mills.
Oh, yeah.
So let me ask this question. Why does anxiety and substance abuse go hand in hand?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think which avenue I want to take with it. Well, first of all, kind of to your point before, there's nobody that comes in right into treatment without some level of depression and anxiety, whether that's substance induced, everything that they just experienced, the chronic stress that comes with addiction. And it's always, it's always hard because it's based on their answers and also their insight. Some of people that come into treatment, some of our clients have had anxiety prior to using, and it's just been perpetuated and exacerbated by addiction. Some didn't, maybe, and it just got exacerbated just by the chronic stress and the addiction itself. And so when it comes to using and when they're in active addiction, it's this perpetual cycle of needing something external to feel better. I need this, it's going to feel better. So there's no coping mechanisms being used that are healthy at all at that point. The coping mechanism, the solution is always the drug, it's always alcohol, etc. And so when people come into treatment, it's like a flood of emotions. And they're like, I don't like this feeling. I'm restless. I'm irritable. I'm discontented. I feel like my heart racing. I can't sit still. Like, there's all these like anxiety driven feelings. And they don't know what to do with it. They've been numbing it the whole time. So I think number one, it could be a how do I say that?
Predisposed.
Yes, like prior to that, there could be a history of that. But I also know that addiction can completely exacerbate that, even if maybe they didn't have anxiety prior. Most of the time, clients come in with a level of anxiety or depression every time.
Destiny, what about you? You obviously struggled with both, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, I've struggled with mental health since a child, which anxiety with it, but
Same.
I was diagnosed ADHD at like the age of 8 years old. So Ritalin, Adderall, all of that through my whole childhood, all of that. But even still with childhood, I don't even know if mine, you could say mine was situationally based, but mine definitely started young, with trauma as a child. And it's crazy how it continued to mold into the person I was, because as I grew up, I carried these things with me with, like feeling like I've always done something wrong in somebody's eyes. You know what I mean? And no faults of the other person, they blinked weird or something like that. Or I just got a feeling, and it's these things that I have carried my entire life, and debilitating. Yes. But if anything, like for me, because of that, my addiction kind of helped, honestly. Like it
Yeah.
numbed, right? It kept me extremely numb. Now, that's not to say I didn't have debilitating anxiety through my addiction, just the constant chaos. But it would help in moments of like just being able to numb myself. But then we get sober, we get clean, and all of those years of like numbing and not having healthy coping skills, then I get in here. Now I'm a drug addict that already had anxiety. And we took what was my temporary solution day in and day out, and now I'm just having an absolute breakdown. So now I've got to, with the addiction going hand in hand, learn coping skills for my addiction. And then hand in hand with that, I've got to learn coping skills for my anxiety, because I have to keep my awareness that like my addiction is separate from my mental health. Now, do they fuel each other? 100%. And do I deal with them on a daily basis together? Yes, but they are separate, and I have to have different coping skills sometimes to keep them separate.
And at the time, like, did you know or were able to name, like, this is anxiety when you were growing up, right?
No. I had
Right, like,
no
we don't
idea.
know that.
No.
It's just, like, our experience.
Exactly. And that experience I literally have taken with me until I got in the rooms with proper, medication management and seeing a psychiatrist and stuff like that. But growing up, it was just a part of who I was. And looking back, talking to a therapist, doing some healing, now I can see, you know what I mean, as how I operated with it my entire life.
And that's like such an important thing too, because that was my experience too, because I really struggled with anxiety and depression from when I was like it probably started in like middle school, and I didn't know that's what it was. Like there was no language for it. I mean, I was young, and therapy wasn't something that was readily available. It wasn't something that was necessarily like offered or talked about. And so I realized what it was years later as I was doing therapy, and talking to my therapist, going into Al-Anon, doing my steps, like all of that kind of simultaneously allowed me to see like more insight and being able to say, oh my gosh, that's what that was. That was just normal to me. And I think and to touch on like the trauma part too, because anxiety, okay, there's generalized anxiety disorder, right, from the DSM-5, where you have to meet certain criteria in order to be diagnosed with that. Anxiety, though, you can have moments of anxiety in your life, and that's normal. We're humans. Like, we're going to be stressed. We're going to have anxiety. It's very different having like anxiety normally as like a normal person going through life. Like, that's normal. But having a disorder is something that invades your day-to-day living. That's
it's not situationally based.
Exactly, right. And we need a lot of our anxiety can come from fear. And we need a fear response in our bodies because we need to be able to protect ourselves. That's why our body has a fight or flight system, because when we're in danger, we have to be able, we're not going to cuddle with a bear when we know the bear can kill us, right? So going back to like caveman
I would challenge
times.
not to pop. This is a perfect option.
God,
I had to step in here. You cuddle with a bear every night.
Oh, my bear.
Her husband.
My husband.
That is so true.
That's true.
Your bear.
I do call him bear.
Anyways, all right. Go ahead.
I can go on that one.
No, we're good.
But yeah, so we have that built-in fight or flight mechanism so that we can protect ourselves. The thing is, when we've had trauma as children and throughout our life, or addiction is trauma, it's the same thing. And because it works the same in the brain, and there's chronic stress that happens in addiction. So when we have those responses, it's healthy, but not when it's all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in your fight or flight, and your body is like at a 10. Your central nervous system is overly engaged every day, day in and day out. That releases cortisol, stress hormones. You can't think straight. The front part of your brain isn't working as it should. You're in fight or flight. Not only are you in fight or flight because of maybe the chronic stress, but you're also in that kind of part of the brain because of addiction. And the front part of the brain is what helps us with our mood regulation. It helps us with decision making. It helps us with impulsivity. That's where our values lie, our personality. So when that's inhibited, like you're literally in fight or flight. Whether it's when you're in like an anxiety attack, or you're having like a trigger when it comes to trauma, or when you are in active addiction. So quite literally, there's no ability to regulate on your own when you're in that space, because you can't be in the front part of your brain and fight or flight at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens when someone gets sober, that front part of the brain is still healing. That's why we get clients in groups that can't sit still. They get agitated really easily. They can't seem to have tolerance for their own emotion. Their front part of their brain is healing, and it takes time. And that's where the coping skills come in, because coping skills actually help to strengthen that front part of the brain again. And it creates new neural pathways in the brain. And okay, this is what I can do. So it's strengthening that. But in the beginning, it's like suffering. It's suffering in the beginning. You're unsettled in your own skin. One small look from someone, they react. You get pissed off because somebody stole your Cheerios at housing, whatever. And it's not ever about that. It's always deeper than that. But you're literally retraining your brain and helping your front part of your brain heal. So if you have trauma and on top of it, active addiction, that's been impacting this that whole time.
Yeah, you're in a constant state of anxiety.
Essentially.
There's, the part that you brought up about it, the fight or flight, I think is very important. And I don't want to glance over that. Like, anxiety is relatively normal. And what we see with patients that come through here, every now and again, we'll get the guy or the girl that they won't necessarily come out of their room. And it's really disheartening, but that is somebody that you kind of have to treat with tender gloves, because it's easy for us to be like, oh, come on, just come out and enjoy and, be part of the community and come down and have dinner with us. And intent is 100% pure. Like, we want people to engage, but chances are they've never been in a situation like this, surrounded by other men or other women, maybe against their will. They could be here for, whatever reason. And to just expect that they're going to do that is unfair to them, but they're in that fight or flight mode. The only thing is that their flight is to their room, right? Before, the flight was to the bottle or to the pills or to the anti-anxiety medications or the sex or the food. You know, anything to tamper down that anxious feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where people get caught up in this. And that first feeling of anxiety, people oftentimes want to run away from it. And I remember this goes back probably, I want to say 5 years ago, maybe 6. No, I know exactly when it was. It was when I was getting ready to fly to California. This would have been 2018, 7 years ago. I hate flying.
Do you really?
Oh, I absolutely hate it.
didn't know that.
I would choose to drive any day of the week if I could,
Mhm.
you know, everything about it. The flight in particular. I don't mind the airport. I don't mind the people. I don't mind none of it. I don't mind spending $10 for a bottle of water. I'm cool with all that. It's when I get on that plane and that door shuts and we're taking off. Forget it. I turn into an absolute maniac in my mind, right?
Well, it feels
You
that way
won't-
on the inside.
You won't be able to notice it, but I'm like, I don't move. I don't say anything. I don't talk to anybody. And I put my earbuds in. We were getting ready to fly to California. My son would have been probably 2, and my
Mhm.
daughter was literally like 4 or 5. No, she was born in January, and this was October of 2018. So she would have been whatever, 7 months old. So we're about to board this flight, and I got 2 young kids, my wife, and my wife's cool as a cucumber. She can care less, you know? And I'm freaking out inside. And I ended up going in the airport terminal somewhere and tucking away in the corner and put in my earbuds. And I'm an avid podcast listener. And I'm just like on my phone, like anxiety, how to deal with anxiety, blah, 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 because I'm like freaking the hell out. And I came across this podcast and I wish I could remember what it was. And this sounds so simple and stupid, but to this day, I believe this was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. In that moment, I listened to this podcast, and this gentleman, whoever he is, I wish I knew his name and the name of the podcast. He said, one of the first things that I ever did to handle my anxiety was welcome it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, welcome it?
Yeah.
Welcome it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then he literally walked, and this all was in like a 2 or 3 minute span, you know? He would talk to the anxiety. Like, okay, you're here. And I talked about this on the podcast not long ago. So if you heard this before, I'm sorry. But he's like, you're here. Do whatever the fuck you're going to do and get out, because I got to go on with my day. And I'm like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. And I'm like, now, it's not like I went prancing onto the airplane and like, oh, yippee, you know, but it was like, that was the first real experience that I had of like, I can control this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just by allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Let it run its course. Let it do its thing. It's when I would perpetually try and fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here, you know?
Yes.
And then it turns into panic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like I'm having a heart attack and I'm sweating and I'm like, you know, so.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was actually just talking to a client today in session, and how this person's been struggling with their emotions, and they have a tendency of suppressing. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to pretend I'm okay. This person had to do that. That's how they survived, right, throughout their life. And now they're learning a new way. But that was the first thing I always tell them. Recognize it and invite it. Embrace it is usually what I say to them. And they kind of look at me like I'm nuts.
Mm-hmm.
But I always give them the metaphor of swimming in the ocean. And what do they tell you to do to get out of a riptide? And half the time they're like, I don't know, I'm not from Florida. I'm like, great, I'm going to tell you, because this is probably like not only metaphorical, but also practical, because you're going to go to the beach. But you have to go with the current. You're not supposed to fight it, because you can drown. Our emotions are the same way. To go with it. recognize it, embrace it. And actually, there was a study I was reading recently and from Harvard about how recognizing the emotion and being able to embrace it, like, okay, this is what I'm feeling and this is what it is, actually eliminates it by like 50%. Doesn't mean it takes it away completely, but it alleviates it because you're no longer fighting the current.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, there it is. And another thing that reminded me that this helps me, because I get like that on, this is so random, but like ski lifts or like gondolas or anything where I have to go in and it's like enclosed and I can't get out. It's a lack of control. And I get like that with planes sometimes, but not as bad, because I'll look to the right and I see a 5-year-old. I'm like, all right, if they're fine, I'm fine too. I don't know why that helps me. But on ski lifts or gondolas, I get like the same, like the flushed feeling. Like I feel like I'm going to have an anxiety attack because I can't, what happens if I can't get off or this thing stops, and all these things start running through my head. And I was in Vermont and I went on one, and instead I did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, which I always ask clients to do to ground them after a session. Not always, sometimes. Where you look at 5 things you can see and you like say them out loud in your head. So like black sweatshirt, green plant, like you say it in here. And then you do 4 things that you can feel, like tactically, like I can feel the chair, I can feel my shoes. And you say it in your head. 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And that forces your brain to be in the present moment because you're focusing on your 5 senses. And even in that moment, that helps. It's like a little tool that you can use. And I also use deep breathing, because when we're in that fight or flight, our mouths get dry. And actually, if you go like this.
Like right now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It cultivates saliva.
What?
It makes saliva.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Because when you're in fight or flight, your mouth goes dry.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah, I know.
So that I do that, and like I'll deep breathe, because when you're anxious, your breath is from your chest. It's shallow. So when you're breathing from your belly, it actually activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the brakes of your body, and it's telling your body like, I'm okay, I'm safe. Mm-hmm. Those are just little things that can maybe help.
For those of you not watching on YouTube, what we were doing is rubbing right underneath our jawline, almost towards like your jugular, on both sides, and you like massage it, and yeah, you'll like develop spit.
Yeah.
That's pretty weird.
Well, you're welcome.
See, your degree did serve you good.
Right? If you learn anything from me, it's that.
So
go ahead.
Speaking to, there's a lot of good points that I've heard, and I'm thinking about like my journey with mental health over the years, and in different ways and coping skills that I've tried to like deal with it, and some that like have worked better than others. Because throughout, especially through my sobriety, now that I've got these emotions that I've got to start learning how to process through and sit with, because my anxiety, it's almost like there are mornings I just wake up anxious for whatever reason.
Ditto.
I wake up anxious. There's nothing going on. I don't have anything planned, but I feel like I kind of want to crawl out of my skin. And there's been times where I've been on my couch at 4:00 in the afternoon. Nothing is going on in my life. I'm doing well in school. Everything's fine. And I can't get off the couch for whatever reason, because I'm so crippled with anxiety and fear, like telling myself to turn on the TV just to have some background noise, and I won't do it. Telling myself to just get up and go outside. I remember a specific moment I could not get off the couch for 2 hours, and it was...
You're in freeze.
Yeah, I was literally...
in freeze.
I was frozen, and I talked to myself in my head, and I kept telling myself, and my body just, it wouldn't move.
When was this?
Oh my gosh.
Whenever going into my 6 years, because I was kind of open about it when it happened. Whenever I had my whole mental health thing and I had to get into see a psychiatrist, I started seeing a therapist.
It's like a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, going on 2 years,
See, and this brings up a good thing, and I don't want to glance over this. I didn't know about that. And a lot of times people go on their daily lives and they don't, Like, this isn't something that I want people to see. This isn't what I want people to know about me. I want to keep this kind of under wraps because we've been working together now for how long?
Going on 5 years.
And I didn't know. I mean, I knew you had anxiety,
Yeah.
but, it's like whatever. But
And I love that you bring that up because that brings me to my next point of like inviting it in, right? Because like I do see a psychiatrist, like I don't take any sort of benzodiazepines, me being a drug addict myself, like I take, Wellbutrin, Lexapro, anything that is not mood or mind altering controlled substance. But even like I just recently had turns out I'm not ADHD, I am bipolar, so that's a whole new breakthrough happening. But, and I just lost, never mind, we're back.
Got
Train of
it?
thought's
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yep, I caught it. Talking about it, right? Like now that I've had this diagnosis, because I do have extreme highs and I do have lows, and just talking about it. Like a perfect example was I was speaking at a meeting and I get very in my head about how you think about me, how you see me, whatever the case, if I'm doing something wrong. And normally when that happens, I have a panic inside and I won't say anything and I'll try and fix it really quick. And then I go down the rabbit hole of I look stupid, I sounded stupid, whatever my anxiety is doing at that point. But like saying it out loud, I was in the meeting and I said, look, I messed up. I lost my train of thought. And these clients are sitting there trying to help me backtrack because I like openly talked about it. And then even in the workplace with my friends, I am like openly talking about if I mess up, if I get in my head, if I have some weird thought that you might be upset with me. Like I'm being so open that it's a part of me, but it's not who I am. I'm just talking about it like it's normal for me. And honestly, it has helped so much because it's so different when you can openly talk about it.
Oh my
Because
God, yeah.
for me, what the battle was every single day was dealing with it on my own. And like you were saying, nobody knowing what was going on in my head.
it makes it worse.
It makes it so much worse. It's fighting a daily battle by yourself in a constant high strung like state of panic.
And remind me to ask you something when we're done because
Okay.
I've got an intuition like as you were talking.
Mm.
But when you said something earlier, Tom, about getting to the root of it versus like a medication to just solve it, a Band-Aid, if you will. And a lot of times there is something deeper, and it's how we've internalized our environment. It's the things that have happened around us, the implied messages, and we typically will internalize it. And for some of us, it has created anxiety. Like, oh my God, what are they thinking? Or that's what my head would do. And there's times where I even go to Tom and Tom's like, you're overthinking. Because I do. I'm like, should I have said that different? I think I go through like conversations in my head and I'm like replaying everything and like what I should have said and shouldn't have said. And that's how my anxiety creeps up. And so actually self-disclosure too, like I've been on Lexapro for 5 years and I recently decided to taper off. And that's just a very personal decision for me. I'm not saying I recommend that for people. I think it's very case by case. For me, I decided to try it because I've been more stable than I have ever had in my whole life. And I've been in therapy or working as a program now for 5 years. So I've decided to start tapering down. And so as a result, now I'm feeling some of the effects of that, which is normal. And I've been talking to my doctor, and going back to that, I love my doctor so much because he'll tell me like, go to the gym, like use meditation, take walks, like help yourself to increase your serotonin naturally or your endorphins to help you counteract the taper. And he's very holistic. But going back to what I was saying, like I've noticed that I'm more sensitive right now because of the taper, but it gives me an opportunity to apply the coping skills that I've learned in the last 5 years too. And now doing the deeper work, I know where it comes from. Like when my anxiety creeps up, it's usually fear related. And one thing that's helped me a lot, I'm not trying to impose my beliefs on anyone else because this is a very, very personal endeavor, is my spirituality. That has helped me substantially. Like for me, when I'm in fear, I'm trying to take the wheel back, and I'm trying to go back on my will. And so I take a minute and I read my devotional or I pray, and I'm like, okay, like I'm feeling anxious. What's that about? I get curious without judgment. What is this fear about? What is this bringing up for me? And then I ask God to remove it, or I ask God to I say to him, like, you know what, God, I'm feeling very anxious right now. Can you just guide me today? Guide my words, guide my actions. And there's something to that for me that it like alleviates this pressure of having to not feel the way I'm feeling. It helps me embrace it, and it helps me to look at what I can do in that moment, and the rest is kind of outside of my control, because half the time I'm fearing something that I don't have control over. That to me has been very helpful, but also just knowing myself through therapy and like doing my own work. And I'm really big about telling the clients that, because I don't want them to ever feel like just because I'm in the position as a therapist and I'm not human, I'm just like them. I'm no different. And it's another person trying to get through life in the best way. And if I can offer them something great, and if I don't know something, I'll tell them I don't know. But I feel like it's important when you get to know yourself, like it gives you a little bit of level of compassion. Like, oh, no wonder I talk to myself that way, because I heard that at one point. Or I maybe felt that way when I was a kid, and now it's like that's familiar. It's coming back. Or, you know what? I like to be in control, and I feel like I'm not, and my family's with me. And what if something happens on the plane? No wonder I feel fear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, it's learning to validate, because a lot of times, like going back to the suppression, it's getting hot. I'm also wearing a sweater. Sorry, squirrel.
Yeah.
But like, it's also learning to not judge yourself for feeling the way that you do too. And I think part of embracing it is learning, okay, I'm having a human experience. And half the time, judgment and suppressing it just makes it worse. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. Like, really? Who says you shouldn't?
Well,
Should is, I don't like that word anyway, but.
In fact, most people should feel that way in the sense, in the society that we live in. I mean, it's an anxiety provoking world that we live in.
I'm so glad you brought this up. That's such a good point.
Okay, but hang on.
Go for it.
And only by way of like, you know, obviously the political climate that we're in provokes anxiety in everybody, no matter what side you're on. Social media, it's anxiety provoking. I want to look like that person. I want to present like that person. I'm not getting enough likes. And I catch myself in that crap, you know?
Yeah.
Even I'll be in here doing a podcast, and my phone will ding just like now, and I'm checking to see who commented on whatever, you know, and it provokes this thing. But
I gotta know right now what they say.
Yeah.
Who, you know?
Go ahead and let me know your thoughts on that, and then I got something else I want to say.
No, I love what you said, because, so kind of to reiterate what we said, there's a normal amount of anxiety. There's anxiety that's cultivated by probably trauma and chronic stress, addiction, right? It's very layered. Also, we're in a world where we're constantly being fed stimuli, constantly. Like, our brains are not hardwired to take on as much as we do. I mean, we're constantly on our phones. We're constantly getting information. We're constantly knowing what's going on around the world and all the problems and all the issues that make us feel like we're so hopeless in that. We're constantly on the go, even to the point where efficiency is part of like branding at this point, and business models, because of how fast paced our lives are today. And so our nervous system is not built for that. We need time to just be away and be present, go outside. That's why some of this stuff is like trending. I've noticed this stuff trending on social media, like soft life, you know, going outside, like doing things that are more relaxing. And it's because I think we're getting to a place where people are realizing, like, I'm exhausted. Like, this is a lot. And again, our brains and bodies are not built for that. Like, we need time to just be away from that stuff, and mindfulness and being grounded. And we're inundated, I guess, to your point, with constant information, and it can be exhausting. Like, sometimes just put your phone away for a little bit. Not you, Like anybody. Me too.
No, well, no, I definitely need to. One thing that you said that I wanted to bring up was we develop these coping skills. Oh, it was in reference to you coming off of Lexapro. Like you spend the vast majority of your life, call it, helping people overcome this stuff. Anxiety, depression. You're a licensed therapist, right?
Mm-hmm.
The phrase that came to my head as you were talking is, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And so it's easy for us to sit here and preach on the things that people should do, right? You should do this. You should do that. I recommend you do this. I recommend you do that. But if we just, the phrase, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it, which for whatever reason that came into my mind, it really puts things into perspective. It's easy for us to say all this stuff, but are we doing it ourselves? And if we're not doing it ourselves, then eventually there will come a point in time when we need to, and we forgot how.
Yes. And I love that you're bringing this up because I think there's two things. One, I don't think that it's impossible to live an anxiety-free life. I mean, it's mental health, therapy, 12 steps is not doesn't make us immune to human experiences. It doesn't make us immune to anxiety and stress. It helps us to move through it. And I think there's this like misconception that like, well, I'm doing well, so why am I feeling this way? Well, because you're human. Like those things are not going to cure that. A normal amount of stress and anxiety is part of life, and it's about building resilience and coping skills and moving through it in a healthier way. Are we going to do it 100% of the time? No. But then we look at it, we gain more information, and we pivot. But to your point with that, even for us that work in the field, it is so important for us to practice the things that we are preaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this to clients all the time, like I'm very proud of my degrees and I worked very hard for them, but it doesn't, I'm not trying to downplay it or minimize it, but I guess what I'm saying is the work that I've done on myself has been more vital to me in doing this work than my degrees.
Yep.
Because I can actually walk through that, something that I've walked through myself. And there's one thing from reading it from a book. It's another thing to say, there's a sense of passion and conviction when it comes from a place of doing that versus just reading it. And let's be real, and working in treatment is stressful.
Right.
So we have to practice all this stuff too,
Well, it's like I went to school to be a mechanic, and I drove to this technical school every day for 2 years to read out of books, and every now and again, actually get to wrench on cars, but the vast majority of it was book work.
Mm.
I didn't learn nothing until I actually got out and started actually getting to work on cars.
Hands-on.
Yeah,
I'm a
experience,
hands-on learner. It's the experience.
100%.
Doesn't mean that you're disqualified. And that's interesting. And I'll say this and then we can move on and then wrap it up. A lot of times, how many times have you gotten, and I don't know the answer to this, but how many times have you got asked by clients, are you in recovery?
It's funny. They rarely ask me that.
Okay. Why?
That's a great question. I don't want to I think that when I sit with someone, I see them.
Yeah.
And I relate to them, and I meet them at like where they're at. How do I put this into words? Like, I think that people feel safe when they come into my office because of how I am with them. So
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever had to ask me. And maybe because I'm very open about the work I've done on myself and continue to do, like I'm in ACA now. And I tell that to the clients, but like, I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe you can elaborate, but like.
So I was trying to think from like,
Talking to the mic.
Obviously I've been through, don't yell at me.
Well, you do that a lot. You
I
do this
know.
like head pivot where you like start looking up at the ceiling.
No,
Not to
I'm
cause
very
any
dramatic when I
anxiety
talk. We know that
or
I'm a
anything.
very don't give me
Don't pick on Schmoosh.
don't give me anxiety right now.
All right. Sorry.
'Cause now you made me forget.
You were saying, like he asked me why is it that, or how many times have I been asked if I'm in recovery? I've been asked. I'm not saying I haven't, but it's rare. I never.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to think of it. Me being a client in treatment, I feel like I would just be scared too. Like I'm sitting in this office, coming in, no life skills, no nothing. And I mean, me not knowing anything about recovery and that just being like a personal question, I don't know. I just don't know if I would have the courage to, I feel like.
Okay, well, that's not most people's experiences, I
Yeah.
think. And I think, and here, let me answer that question for you. I think the reason that people don't ask you that is because of the environment that you provide. I think it's very quickly established client to therapist relationship in your situation is developed very quickly. And so they don't find it necessary, right? There's a bond there. There's a click, something. But a lot of therapists out, they're not as good with that as you are, right?
Oh,
And
thanks, Tom.
you're welcome.
He gave me a compliment.
So a lot of people come in, and I'm keeping this in context of the degrees aren't that important.
Mm-hmm.
They're important, but they're,
Right.
A lot of times clients say, well, how would you even know? You're not even in recovery, and they almost try and bait you. Like, well, Nicole, are you in recovery? How do you know what I've gone through? You've never experienced what it's like to overdose and get Narcan 3 times in 1 week. You don't know what it's like to get, sexually assaulted as a 5-year-old, yada, yada, da, 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 and almost, weaponizing, all this stuff. But the reason I bring that up is that it doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with the experiences as it does what we do for ourselves, right? There's things that are vastly different between you and Maya. Maya's our other therapist, one of our other therapists here. You guys have different experiences, but you ultimately know what you want the end goal to be for the people that enter in here. And so looking through that framework and understanding that it has very little to do with the substances, and I tell people that all the time, when somebody enters into these doors, we're not talking a whole lot about drugs and alcohol. I mean, if we're talking on a scale of 1 to 10 or a percentage, I would say we're talking 10 to maybe 20% about the substances that you use, and the other 80%, the reasons behind the use. And so from a therapist's perspective, if you're constantly looking through that lens, it doesn't matter if you're in recovery or not.
Right. And to that point, I used to work at an all-male facility, and I used to call it like hospice for treatment, because there were gentlemen that were right out of prison, homeless, like just like they were at the pretty much the progression wise pretty substantially
towards the end.
Yeah. And I could have used that even opposite, say, well, I'm female. At the time I was a lot younger and I'm not in recovery. So what do I have to have in common with them? But that was never my perspective. Like, to me, it's about the human experience. It's about pain. It's about trauma. It's about not feeling seen. It's about being judged. It's about not having had a space to feel safe and have unconditional positive regard for that human being. It's about wanting the same things out of life. And to me, that's what makes us all the same. And also, if I did have a client that was angry in that way, like, well, how do you know? Like, the fuck do you have to offer me? What I hear in that is like, oof, you really don't trust people.
Right.
Like, who hurt you? Because that's a guard off the rip, right? And so I have compassion for that. But to me, it's about like honing in on what makes us more in common. And to your point, that's the pain is why they're here. It's not this. It is the substance, but you see what I'm saying? That was a solution to something greater, and that's really why they're here.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I think addicts in recovery are the most amazing people in the world. Like, because it takes people like me, normies. I hate that term because we're all a little fucked up. Excuse my language, but it's true. That us normies tend to not do the work that addicts in recovery do until it gets bad enough. And I don't know what caused me to do it, but thank God I did. But like, I feel like people in recovery like get to a level of depth in their life that most people don't ever get to, because you have something as loud to force you to have to do it because your life depends on it. You know?
Amen to that, sister.
Question.
Yes,
you had a
ma'am.
question. No, you had a question. You told me to remind you.
No, I'm not going to do it on the podcast.
Oh,
I love you, Schmoosh.
just kidding.
Yeah.
Never mind.
All right, I have a question.
No question.
This is kind of a fun one.
Uh-oh.
What is the most anxiety-provoking situation that, like, when you can, and I already know the ones I'm saying, but we all have situations in which we're in and we're like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Get me out of here. I don't want to be here. What is that for you guys? We've already established one of them is airplanes.
Gondolas and ski lifts for me.
Okay, Destiny. Oh, boy.
Mm,
Oh, I thought of another one. But go ahead, you go first.
I don't think it's anything like that as far as like something materialistic. So something for me where I freaking panic is when shit changes last minute. And I lose my mind. I don't know why.
Give me an example. That's interesting.
I don't know, like plans, when an emergency happens or plans change last minute, something gets in the way. Yeah, you know, you can ask about that one, Ben, because something will change last minute and I will, every single time, I panic for 10 minutes and I get really overstimulated and sometimes I get aggravated and irritable, and it's a good idea probably just not to talk to me. And then once I calm down and I start to regulate a little better, then I can get in my head and like actually start to plan something out. I do not do well when plans change last minute on me. I don't do well. I panic.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's because you like certainty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Control.
What was your other one?
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, is that anxiety or is that just like a normal human response to something like this? But like feeling like getting made fun of in front of people in like a mean way.
Oh yeah, I've seen that on you.
I don't like that.
So bullying.
Oh, 100% brings me right back to middle school.
Basically.
Oh,
bullying. Yeah, that is childhood trauma for me. I was bullied
100%.
out of my school my 8th grade year. They bullied me out.
Really?
Yeah, I was
had
picked
that
on
experience in middle
so
school.
bad. My
Terrible.
8th grade year, it was so bad.
Speaking of anxiety, that's what happened. I was like, I stayed home and I was so sick with anxiety that I stayed home for like a week because I could not go to school because of how the girls were treating me at school.
Oh God.
It was
That's why I'm doing homeschool.
horrific. It was absolutely horrific. But yeah, that was one that came to mind. And there was another one.
Elevators for me.
Really?
Hate. And then this last one, you're going to laugh.
What?
Car washes. Yep.
Because you don't have control. You're stuck in the car.
I don't like confined
Spaces.
No comment.
What? You don't like car washes either?
Oh, no. That's just like mini raves in there. I turn the music up, the lights are going, the bubbles splashing around. It's fun.
I don't like them.
It's fun. I'm trying to think. As
Or
much
like-
anxiety that I have, I can't pinpoint. I really just think it's everything.
Because it's all the time, every day, all day.
Yeah,
right?
I can't like single in on something.
That's why you have cats.
You guys would be proud of me though, because one of the huge fears that gave me anxiety was this right here.
Oh, yeah.
You mean today or like in general?
No, podcasts just in general.
Oh, really?
You don't remember
No, I know that. No, I remember back in the day, but not now.
No, not now, but I'm saying that's...
Oh, right. Well, me too.
I broke through that fear.
Or any situation where like you don't know the outcome, which is like a lot. now that I'm thinking of it. But
That's 80%
that's like
of
literally,
the day.
that's like my whole day now that I'm thinking about it. But that's, it's control and realizing I don't have control over it at all. I can just do what I can do. Sometimes going into group.
You know what? I'm going to keep it simple.
What?
Everything out of my control gives me anxiety.
Oh, thank you. That's essentially, that's
welcome to my TED Talk. That's
it.
Everything.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
I knew you guys would do well. Full transparency. They did not want to talk about this. And I'm like, nope, we're doing it.
Well, we got anxiety because we were going to talk about anxiety.
Literally having knots in my stomach because we have to talk about anxiety.
Any weekend plans?
Do I have any weekend plans? I don't know. I just did my finals yesterday, so I don't have school till the 19th. Yeah.
Always?
Yay! I did.
Good.
No, not always. I got an 82 in my in my lecture.
Amazing still.
Got to get that 92 next time. What about you, Nicole?
Oh my God. I'm getting my hair done. I'm getting my nails done and cuddling with my bear and my dog Daisy.
Oh, it's family weekend this weekend.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing family weekend too. Yep, I'll be there.
It's definitely on the priority list.
100% top one.
I will not be at family
weekend.
Why,
Tom?
Because I got plans. I don't know what they are yet, but I know I got them.
Car washes?
Maybe. I do go to car washes. I just don't like them. Elevators, I freaking hate them. And at my dad's place, oh my gosh, it's like the worst. Because he's in an assisted living home.
Oh.
And like you'll get on the elevator with somebody that's, 100 years old. And then they go to get off the elevator.
They take forever.
Like, come on. Come on. Meanwhile, I'm just stuck or and they're like, what floor are you going to? And I'm like, 3.
I know. It takes 5 minutes to get to the button.
Oh my gosh.
Big crowds.
Big crowds?
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't bother me.
I get so hyper vigilant, or when there's a lot of people in the mall. I'm so weird. I don't like being around a lot of people.
Oh, you wouldn't like Disney then.
I mean, there's many ears, so it's fine.
No, you know what? Now that I think about it.
All right, last one, and we're wrapping this up.
Cameras in my face. This is okay. I'm used. No. This is okay because I'm not sitting there talking and looking at the camera the whole time. It's like I can sit here and I can block that out and I can focus on you two. But if someone said, "Hey, Destiny, I need you to make a 30-second reel about whatever."
All right, so here's what I'm going to say to that. It has nothing to do with the camera. It has everything to do with how you feel like you look in that camera.
I was thinking
because you spend more time getting ready for that 30-second clip. I could record an hour worth of content of you, just you getting ready. In other words, you're like, okay, I got to do my hair this way. I got to make sure that this shirt looks okay. Can you see this? Blah, 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 blah. It's a little over the top.
Well, are you saying me specifically?
Yes.
What are you calling you out? When have I ever gotten ready like that on camera?
What are you talking about?
Maybe this is a subject post-podcast.
If I said, hey, Destiny, we need to record, a 30-second reel. It wouldn't take you an hour, but it would take you 10 minutes to get ready for that 30-second reel. You did it here.
When?
You're like, can you flip that screen out so I can see how I look?
I literally looked in the camera, I fixed my hair, and we got started.
I know, I'm just saying.
You're being dramatic, is what you're doing.
Maybe.
You're being 100% dramatic.
Right.
Okay, sure. So the idea of the camera.
No, it's the idea of how you look.
He just came at my throat. Did he not? Out of nowhere. We
hold each other accountable around here, I guess.
It's all truth on Real Recovery Talk.
He came for me.
It's okay, all right. We'll process after.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You good? You good?
No, I have anxiety.
All right, you good?
Yes, I'm just hot.
All right. Well, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.
Bye.